welcome to Pocket Watch Podcast. I'm Zach.
Cruz.
Jake.
And this is Nick.
Yes!
I know y'all heard that switch up. We do got a guest up in the building today.
We got Nick Nelson, real estate agent, very successful in Central Florida. He's got those of you we like to talk about multiple streams of income. My man has experience in the Airbnb game. He's got a couple Airbnbs right now. He's had experience with others. Obviously, the market is what the market is. My man had to sell and cash out and do some things that he had to do.
We'll talk about that.
Yes, sir. We got Big Dick Nick in the building. It's going to be a good episode, man. Good episode. Appreciate you for coming, man.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
I was going through my reels and I saw one of those trendy reels where it's like, oh, so you think you're an artist?
Yeah.
Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. And you saw all these nice houses and stuff. I was like, let me check this guy out. I saw Orlando. I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. I saw 4 Airbnb properties and stuff like that. Come on, come talk about it. Because Airbnb has been a thing we've talked about here and there, whether it's subleasing or whatever the case is. And we kind of talked about it before we started recording. And I really like how you kind of stumbled into the game. And I feel like it's a good approach for those that are scared to do it, right? Because there's a risk associated to it with anything if you want to be your own boss and stuff like that. But the way you stumbled into it is also a good way for those that I think are scared about doing it to just kind of like get your feet wet. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it kind of started about 2 years after I moved here. I moved here in 2012, as we talked about before.
Oh, I want to get into this too.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
Nick is also the only drama major that's not worried about paying their student debts. What did you graduate? What was your degree in?
So I graduated in 2010 from the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music with a degree, BFA in musical theater, right?
Say that 5 times fast.
I know. And yeah, I graduated. I moved to New York, did the, struggling artist thing, was able to do some really fun things. I traveled.
You did Beauty and the Beast and stuff like that?
I did the national tour of Beauty and the Beast for 6 months. Did cruise ship work, did regional theater productions and all that. And then in 2012, Disney called and they were like, hey, we want to cast you in Beauty and the Beast live on stage at Hollywood Studios.
That's really, really cool.
And, I was like, well, it was a year-long contract, which is kind of unheard of in, the musical theater world.
Is that a long contract?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before this, I was... if you're doing like a big tour or something, it's, 6 to 12 months at a time. But, like regional stuff, like before I had Beauty and the Beast, I was supposed to literally, it was a 2-week contract I was supposed to do Godspell in West Virginia. I had 5 weeks doing Hairspray and then like 4 weeks in Rhode Island. But like they are just a few weeks at a time. And then you're bouncing in between these random performing jobs. And so when Disney called and they were like, here's a year of employment, I was like, sign me up.
Yes. And it's Florida. That sounds good.
Right. And the sun and all of that. So I was like, I came down here. My goal was to, just save up enough money to, move back to New York and be able to live for a little bit. But like 6 months into my first contract, I was like, oh, like I really like living in Florida.
Yeah.
And so at the end of that 1 year, they basically give you another year of employment, or they say we don't have anything for you.
Yeah.
And so they had another, year of employment, and I was like, okay, I'm going to stay. And that's when my dad, who I was telling you all about, is a broker in Wisconsin.
Already into real estate.
Yeah.
So you kind of saw it.
Totally. Like I grew up kind of seeing what he was doing with real estate. And so that's when he was like, well, Nick, if you're going to be down there for another year, like buy a house. Yeah, and I was like, man, I can't buy a house. Like, at the time I was renting a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment and I was spending $455 a month. Woo, like get that.
Oh my God.
That's unheard of nowadays.
Yeah,
prices. Orlando's growth has been ridiculous.
It's been nuts. It's been nuts.
It's 5 times that price now easily.
Exactly. And so when my dad was like, buy a house, and I was like, well, I'm going to have to pay the mortgage on my own. And at the time, it was very daunting. I was 26 years old.
Yep.
And I remembered looking at the loan estimate, and for a 30-year mortgage, for the first house I bought, it was going to be $760 a month. Because this was 7 years ago.
God.
I know. But I was like, I'm only spending $455 a month right now if I have a $760 payment that I have to make on my own.
What am I going to do?
Updated 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom pool home. Like, I'll never be able to do it.
And it had a pool?
And it had a pool, yeah.
Jesus.
Wow, man.
This is what real estate looks like in 2014 down here.
Mind blowing.
Yeah. And so my dad, who's like the most money conscious, money smart person that I know, he was like, don't do the 30-year mortgage, do the 15-year mortgage. Yeah. Well, the 15-year mortgage was $913 a month.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And I was like, that's over twice what I'm paying right now. And he was like, Nick, they wouldn't approve you for it if you could not handle it. So just do the 15-year.
Yeah.
And literally, I was
Which
talking.
Which is true. Yep.
True.
Good
and
point.
there's different schools of thought. Some people, think that, you're saving money on the interest, but you could be, leveraging that money elsewhere and blah, 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 blah.
Because it's not 2007, 2008 anymore where they were giving everything to everybody.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
This is this is 2014.
Right.
You're actually reaping the benefits of all that shit.
Right.
Yeah,
at
exactly,
that time.
yeah.
But like we were talking about before we got in here, that house, I bought that house for $134,000.
Wow.
And like over the course of 7 years, that was the house I sold 6 months ago. So it was 7.5 years because I had a mortgage that I was going to pay off in half the time with an interest rate that was almost 1% lower. I only owed like $60,000 on my mortgage when I sold that last year. So that's what started all of this.
And what I like about it, and I got one question before we leave the dancing thing.
Yeah.
But just to preview what we're getting ready to get into, what I really like about it is like you were buying it to live in it, right? And then something happened where you were like, you know what? I might be able to rent it out.
Correct.
And we're going to get there. The one question, because did you mention that you did like cruise ship tours?
Yep.
How was that? What did you do with that? Because every time I go on a cruise, I'm like, I don't want to fucking live here. Yeah. The people that live in the bottom, did you like live in the bottom floor or something like that?
Yeah. Like, crew member life isn't
it wasn't the best
glorious as what, having a balcony or a suite or whatever. You're in an inside cabin, you share a room with, another dancer. And so it's tight living spaces and you're literally living on a boat in the middle of the ocean for, my contract was 7.5 months. So
that's a long time.
So I had an amazing time and I was in my early 20s. We went to the disco every night. We were out till 4:00 in the morning. We had shows 2 or 3 nights a week and the show was an hour. We were working maybe 5 or 6 hours a week.
And you did that before you came to Florida?
Correct.
Okay, so you were in Wisconsin.
Yes, born and raised in Wisconsin.
Okay, and then you were like, in the cruise ship, where did you have to travel to like get on the boat and stuff like that? Did you?
So I was on another tour at the beginning of my cruise ship contract, and I was in California the night before my cruise ship contract started. So I literally, I had a red eye the night before my cruise ship contract and I flew from California to Miami and literally got on the ship the next morning and started rehearsals. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's really cool though.
It was intense. Yeah.
7 months. It's like, what kind of cruise line was it?
So it was Carnival Cruise Lines.
Carnival. Okay.
So party ship, crazy, fun guests. But yeah, we did Grand Cayman, Grand Turk, Cozumel, Ocho Rios. We ported out of Miami. So, we just kind of did the same. We had like 3 different. It was a 5-day, 5-day, and a 4-day. So every 2 weeks, you were doing the same routes essentially, and got to live, my best cruise ship
and
life.
You know what? That's cool because the thing is, it's funny because I joked about it where I was just like, "You're the one drama graduate that's not complaining about paying for student loans," but. Like what you did with that degree, up until you were 26 and you came out here and bought a home and started flirting with real estate. It's like you did really awesome. Like you juiced what you had out of that kind of that degree you got. You got to do travel around, do the cruise ship stuff. You did the Broadway thing, and then came down to Disney and settled down a little bit. Yeah. And then then your dad and all these things changed your life.
And then real estate literally just changed everything. Yeah.
So you bought a house to live in.
Correct.
You just kind of talked about how scared you were, what the prices were at and stuff like that. Your dad kind of made you do it a little bit. Like, come on, let's be smart. Good for him. He was
Totally.
right. He was
Totally
right.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And then what kind of creeped into your mind to make you start renting it out? Like what transition was that? Because we all bought a house. We'd all like I bought this house, but like
for sure. I mean, I moved down here, and then my mom ended up buying a house like right across the street from where I lived, and so I literally said, well, if I wanted to rent this out, I live here alone. I wouldn't have to have roommates, coordinate being like, there's people that are, renting this out. You have to get out. Like, it was just going to be me. If I could figure out a way to not be at the house and people wanted to pay me to stay at my house, I was like, I'll figure it out.
Let's do that.
So I was working full time, and then, I put it on Airbnb. I took my own pictures. Like it was not, a good professional way to, right.
Fuck it, let's see.
Right. Exactly. And I had no idea about pricing. I had the same nightly rate for 30 days a month. I didn't even change my weekend pricing. So I was an amateur. I had no idea what I was doing.
You also didn't overthink it.
Right.
Paralysis by analysis or whatever.
Right. And there wasn't much on the line because my mortgage payment, again, was only $900.
Yeah.
So I really didn't have to. And I had a full-time job. It's not like I needed the income coming in from Airbnb to cash flow this property.
It's just where can I stay in the meantime?
Correct. Yeah. And so it just kind of started getting booked and booked and booked and booked. And it got to the point where like I wasn't even living in the house. So I told my dad that, and he was like, well, let's find you another place so that you can live in that one and then rent this one out.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I probably should have done things differently, because you really should, if you're buying it as your primary residence, you should.
Right. Yeah.
But what
I was thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna go down that alleyway.
Amateur. But had no idea what I was doing. But because that can get a little messy. But what I did do that people can utilize is I took out a home equity line of credit after a certain amount of time.
HELOC, yep.
You get a HELOC, and I'm very open with numbers. I will tell you, I had a $45,000 home equity line of credit, which, when you're trying to buy other pieces of real estate and needing to put 20 to 25% down, $45,000 doesn't go very far. Right. But in 2014, when, I could buy something for $125,000, 20% of that's $25,000, and then closing costs, I literally could borrow all of the funds that I needed in order to purchase another property. And that's what I did. And so I got a HELOC, I pulled the funds, I closed on the property, and as soon as that property started making money, I just slowly paid that back. And then when it got down to a zero balance again, I pulled another, $30,000 out and bought another one. Yeah.
So you just kept taking equity out of that one home that you first bought to keep going into the other property.
Yep. And that really was the trick.
Yeah.
And then it just started snowballing, and I bought another one, and then I got to a point though where a bank would not approve me for another mortgage
because
I had I had borrowed so much debt or whatever. Not so much debt. I mean, I borrowed like $100,000, but it got to the point where they were like, nope, you're not going to get approved for another mortgage. So I was like, okay. So then I found a condo in Davenport that had seller financing available, and I convinced that guy to let him be my bank. And so I used a 20 or 25% down payment, and then I just used him to finance the rest of the purchase. So
okay, cool. That's a good thing to think about. Yeah, good tactic. So you buy your first home, you start renting it out, you're making some money. Then you take out, because usually I'm not a big proponent in like taking out equity from your home, because I just feel like, but at the end of the day, that's what getting leverage and getting money and all this.
Right. And it's risky. Like you're literally taking tens of thousands of dollars and just like hoping that people book it and that you're going to recoup that money and be able to pay it back. I'm not saying it's like,
with everything you do in life, that's this business 101. It's investment 101. Is you're going to take money, just allocating funds in different areas in hopes that this what your idea is going to do is going to blow up. Yep. That's literally investing 101.
I guess what not to do is take out that money and go buy a Mercedes.
Yes.
Buy a depreciating asset.
Yes.
And that's the thing. That's what that's what's like blown my mind is I have watched these properties appreciate and appreciate and appreciate and appreciate. Like there are literally units that are the exact same square footage, same layout as mine that are under contract. They have not closed yet, but in both of the communities that I own in now, and they're at double what I purchased them at 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
The fact that you can double your money in 4 to 5 years is insane to me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nuts. That's nuts. So,
and when you went and bought these other properties, at that point, did the whole like primary residence and stuff start to come into play? Because did your interest rates change at all? For the other homes and stuff. Yeah.
So when I ended up purchasing the other ones, you have to claim that as secondary homes, and so the down payment increases substantially, and it's 20 to 25% down, and then the interest rate is about a point higher than what your primary residence.
Is that all though? Is it just about a point higher?
Generally speaking, that's what I've seen. Yeah,
that's what you've been kind of dealing with, is just about a point, which isn't too bad, because I mean, like if you think, I've been thinking about that. Like I've been telling my fiance and stuff where I'm like, this house, I don't think we're ever going to sell it, because we bought December 2020, which was the artificially low interest rates. The value was relatively low to now, like crazy. I'm like, we have this payment, we have this interest rate, we're not selling this house, because if we rent it out, it's only going up like 1% higher. You know what I mean? Like it's like, and then we're going to be at a percent that's probably still lower than what the new house we're gonna buy if we start renting it out at that time. Like whatever interest rates look like a year or 2 years from now, it's not gonna be what it was during COVID or whatever. That's interesting to know, because I always kind of wondered what that difference would be when it's not your primary residence. Because
the banks look at it as riskier because you don't live there, so. If you're not going to be making a mortgage payment, it's going to be on the house that you don't live in.
Right.
So
Right.
They want you to have more skin in the game, and they're going to charge you more and make more money off of you because of that. So,
and it's also really cool. And it's if you're not getting anything from this yet, I mean, if you ask me, because I know Jacob has been dabbling a lot in the he's doing real estate agent and stuff. He's also trying to dabble into the flipping and stuff. And then with that flip, it's going to spark whatever. I really like hearing this, because if you haven't heard anything, it's like, just do it. You know what I mean? And like you said, you didn't think about it too much. You didn't go like, oh, but what is the market like this? And what if this changes and these price? It's like, I'm going to take a picture and I'm going to rent it out and let's just see how it goes. And sometimes that's just what you got to do to get into it, you know, because you can only learn so much. It's like going to school versus like doing the job. You know what I mean? It's like you can only learn so much researching.
For sure. And you will never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, so just dive in, do it, and see what happens.
And you so over the course of time, we're staying on the Airbnb right now, because you also have an illustrious real estate career. You've had up to 4 Airbnb properties that you've done?
3 Airbnbs at the same time, and then my own primary residence,
And then your own primary residence. And then, because I know now, like, all my coworkers, they're looking at Zillow, like, every day, and they're looking at houses they bought 3-4 years ago, and it's just like, oh, my God, I want to make some money off of this. But then it's like, where are you going to move? You know? But the thing about real estate is, like, it's one of the best assets you could buy, right?
Oh, 100%.
And you specifically accumulating this real estate in the time it was, and then looking at the market now, you were in the best position. Like you said, that house that sparked everything for you, you just recently sold, right?
Yes, I did.
And it's like, if you do set yourself up in these positions, whenever the market does present itself, you could cash out and be in a good situation where it's like right now I could sell my house and make a bunch of money, but it's like, when am I going to go buy another $300,000 home? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm just moving money at the end of the day.
Right.
But put yourself in the position to do that in the first place. Like, that's a big reason why I said, like, we're never selling this house.
Yeah.
Because who knows what the market's going to look like 5-10 years from now.
Right.
Whatever the case is.
Right.
Especially Orlando and whatnot.
And that's the thing. I mean, if the market dips, it's not going to crash the way it did in 2008.
Right.
But, I mean, even if you do start to lose value, you just have to cash flow it until the market picks back up again, you know?
Yeah. And it will. Inevitably.
Right.
Like, it's always shown, really, like,
in numbers.
If you look back 5 years, you're always going to think, I should have done that.
Yep.
You know, at the very like 5 years is a good, like, I remember when I first bought this house, they told, the general school of thought would be don't expect to make money off your house within 5 years. And these days, it's like
5 months.
Yeah. These days, I think about it all the time. The people that sold me this house made 40. If they would have held it one more year, they would have made 80 more. You know what I mean? And now I'm sitting on 120. They could have. They could have 4 times as much if they would have just held it for a little bit longer.
I mean, look at 100%. This. Even like what I'm doing now, the manufactured homes, they used to actually depreciate. They never actually appreciated. That's the funny part. Yeah. And now you're looking today in 2022, and these motherfuckers appreciated a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, everything though. Even vehicles. Vehicles are appreciating right now.
Even vehicles. I mean, you're right.
And vehicles are appreciating versus depreciating. But this market is weird.
Man. It's mind blowing.
It will switch back, but it's not gonna drop to the point where like you said, 2008, it's not going to drop to that point at all whatsoever. And real estate overall has always been proven to be one of the, if not the best investment.
Yeah, and I mean, like the
tangible investment.
The thing is like there's more people every year, especially in Orlando and stuff like that. But there's not more real estate, so that's your fixed. Like that's fixed.
It's not growing at the same rate.
And then even if they do, that's the shit that blows my mind. Even if they go build a big complex or whatever, that actually raises the value. You know what I mean, of everything else around it, right? Like this Neo City that's going to be in Kissimmee and stuff like that, right? Like that's just going to raise the value of everything around us. But
for sure. And I've seen, I mean, my dad, like I've seen what he purchased in the 80s, you know? And like he's held on to that for 30, 40 years. And we talk about what it's valued at now, and it is mind-blowing. So holding on to assets that you buy, you know, for extended periods of time.
That's why whenever I hear people say like, oh, I don't want to buy right now, I want to buy right now. It's like, first of all, let's talk about the rates. I mean, this was a couple months ago. I mean, the rates are climbing back up, but like, let's talk about rates. The $50,000 that you're going to save waiting for a year, you're going to pay in just rates and interest rates when the rates start climbing, which they've already started. But like at 2.5%, buying a $350,000 house at 2.5%, if you pay $300,000 at a 3.5 or 4.5, you're going to be paying. You're going to be paying $150,000 more because you waited for it. Oh, I want to save $50,000, but the interest rate just climbed up 2 points. You're going to be paying way more money in the long run. But people don't think about it like that. They just look at the dollar amount and they sign the line. That's it.
Yep. I just like talking about it because like you said, what your dad does and stuff, and I've seen my uncles and I've seen other family members and stuff do it. It's like if you can. It's almost like the best retirement plan you could ever do, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because if you just hang on to them, if you can make enough income with it, whatever your career is and whatnot, if you could, like every purchase you made, you thought about it. Can I afford this and this? What happens if this falls out? You know, and stuff. But you just get into it and you do it, and then the next thing you know, like if you are, you know, once you're in your 60s and stuff, and you got properties and you cash out on all those properties that you bought, you know, incrementally over the time of your life, it's like there goes your $1 million, $2 million on top of whatever you're thinking about.
For sure.
Oh man,
yeah.
It's just a thought that nobody thinks about.
And that's the thing. It's like you buy an asset that appreciates over time, and not only that, like yes, that's great that you have an appreciating asset, but then you're making money on that asset every single month as well.
Yep. You haven't let go of it.
It's also a passive asset at the same time.
Oh, what else?
And the fact that like if you don't buy it in cash and have a bank lend you 80% of the value, you're able to literally make money only having used $20,000-$30,000.
Yep.
And it appreciates.
Imagine if you can throw, I want to throw $100,000 into, well, let's say I want to buy $100,000 in stocks, but I'm just going to put $20,000 into it, and then that stock appreciates. It's basically the exact same, you know, like.
But it's like a safe stock. It's like how do you compare the real estate stock to like these other stocks that you're looking at? You can't.
No, stocks are way too up and down.
Volatile. Even the safest one,
you know, the safest route.
Yeah,
and you can't borrow money to put it in stocks.
You can borrow a margin.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's a different game.
Really bad.
That's scary. That's scary. That's scary.
I'm trying to build my investment portfolio and get into stocks and stuff, but I've all of it's in real estate right now, so I can't speak too much on stocks.
Which is you're probably doing better than a lot of these day traders.
I feel like real estate's good too, as well as like I'm reading a book and it's similar to this, and it's basically you're building that net worth. You know, it's not just like, you know, not just that free cash flow, it's that actual net worth you have. I mean, 3 homes and you're already almost $250,000 already, and
way more than $250,000.
Right.
And way more. So when I joined my team, my real estate team, he had us basically like, what is your net worth? Like, he had us list out all of our assets and all of our liabilities. Yep. And I had never done that before.
Yeah.
And like, I knew what my properties were worth, and I had an idea of like what I owed on them. But I got done with that, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what my net worth is. I was like, there was like okay, like, brush your shoulders off. I feel good about that, you know.
Yeah.
So, but that's such a big thing. Is like you're building your net worth.
They say the fastest way to become a millionaire is through real estate.
Yep.
And that's the reason for that is because of how it appreciates and how you can leverage the money off of it.
The borrowed money. Yep. Absolutely.
So you're doing the Airbnb stuff and all that, making some money, doing good decisions. Like, you don't really hear about that with like drama major dancers, doing Broadway and stuff. Like, usually you're very, usually those people, which you kind of have to be, right, to be successful, but very just consumed with that world. You're doing these things that are going to change the rest of your life and ended up changing the rest of your life. At what point did you start saying, like, let me do some real estate, because you're doing good as a real estate agent and whatnot?
It literally started when I bought that house, and I saw like financially what was happening after having bought it. You know, I saw it starting to increase in value. I saw the loan amount start to decrease, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got more interest in this property. I have more equity in this property. And then once I started renting it out and seeing that, not only is it appreciating, but then I can make money on top of it appreciating. I was just like, why am I not, like, let me buy another one. So it really came down to buying the first one and that kind of opening my eyes, because when I lived in New York City, I never thought before coming to Florida that I would ever own real estate, period.
And not in New York.
No one, exactly. But like, that's the thing. It's like, when you're a struggling actor, it's hard to even like make rent most months, you know, especially when you're, you know, you've got a 2-week gig here and you're doing a show for 3 weeks here, and then you're unemployed for 5 weeks. And like, the money's just too inconsistent for you to really, like, I do have a few friends that have bought real estate and own their apartments. And I think, like, I love seeing that for my friends that are in the performing world. But like, I just feel like the majority of times it's nearly impossible to do. And so when I bought my first house down here, there was like a real, like, aha moment of like, oh, I did that, you know? And then you don't even, I mean, I had no idea what I was in for. You know, you just think, my dad actually thought that the house would never appreciate, and that he was like, this will never be more, you know, worth more than what he paid for it. And he actually, my realtor that helped me buy that house came to my open house when I sold it 7 years later.
Really?
And she, Marcy Walsh, I love that woman. And she was like, you know that your father had words with me about what a bad, terrible financial decision this was going to be, right? And I was like, I had no idea. And she's like, do you think it was a good financial decision now? And I was like, yes, absolutely.
Tell your father.
So, my dad and I had to talk about that. He was like, I don't remember saying that. And I was like, she remembers. But you don't even know. Like 7.5 years ago, I was scared to buy the house because I was just like, I have a $913 mortgage payment, and that scared the bejesus out.
You're locked in.
7 years ago, you're in the position that everybody's in right now that's talking. And they're going to be in the same position in 7 years if they were to buy right now. That's going to be a continuous cycle. That's why I always say is like, it's always going to appreciate.
Listen to the trend, man.
Exactly. It's always going to happen. Like, even though the housing, you know, might dip down for a couple of years, or I was going to say a couple of years, for a couple of months or so, or something like that, it's bound to happen. That's just how the market's going to be. You just got to hold on to it. Right. And it's going to come back up. It's going to explode exponentially.
Yeah. So at what point did you go and get your license and say, I could do the agent thing, I think?
Yeah. So I had my license for, I think it was like 3 or 4 years while I was still at Beauty and the Beast at Disney.
Sitting on it.
And just sitting on it, like not using it, because I had another job that I was at 5 days a week. And I was like, if I were to help anyone else, like I wouldn't have the time. No, I'm gone from like 9 to 6. So if you want to see a house, like it's going to have to be at 7 in the morning or 7 o'clock at night. And no one wants to do that. So, So I got it just because I was buying my own properties, and I was like, it only costs a few $100 to get
a little legwork, a couple $100.
Yeah, 63 hours of class, but you get it, and then you make some money whenever you buy one. And then COVID happened, and no one was working. We got furloughed, and they closed down the show. And I was like, well, I've got this license. Like, let's jump into this full time.
What a fucking pivot. First of all.
Had to, yeah.
First of all, in the Disney dance industry where COVID just totally took a shit on at the time, not knowing, nobody could have guessed and you're in Florida. Let's just like take layers and layers and layers. You're in Florida with sitting on a real estate agent license for 3 years. COVID takes a shit on your current industry, and you're like, let me just see if I could do this real estate thing. Where like you have no idea that that's just gonna go like Florida. Like COVID was the best thing for Florida. I feel like I'm one of those people. I don't know. Like,
COVID was a pivot, was a game changer for me.
Totally,
for a lot of people.
COVID caused terrible things to happen, but I feel like there were also beautiful things to come out of COVID. Yeah. And I feel like my realization that I could actually pursue this real estate, helping people buy and sell, and that I could do it was one of the great things that came out of it, because I did not think I didn't trust myself enough to really dive in head first, because I was like, I've got a great job. I'll never be able to, make what I make at Disney. And then your eyes are just opened when you really do dive in and become your own boss and start doing it.
It's really like Darwin's Theory 101, like adaptability. You adapt to survive, and like because it could have been vice versa, where you didn't do anything and then you're like, oh, I can't do it, and you could have just lost everything that you had.
Right.
But adaptability is where you're able to excel from it.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like, as silly as it sounds, my degree in musical theater, it's like the show must go on. We learn to pivot. It's kind of like just an innate thing that we're taught, when you go to college for 4 years. And so, I pivoted, and it ended up working out. Yeah. And it ended up working out so well that when they did call back the show, I had 5 houses under contract.
And it was like, I'm sorry.
And I was like, the casting director, who I love and adore, he was like, I see that you're doing real estate and it looks like it's going really well, so I understand if you have to take some time. He was like, I'll give you a week, and if you can let me know if you want to come back to we had like a re-audition thing, and and it was a really tough decision.
Was it?
Because it's life. Almost,
it was.
Passion versus money kind of thing.
That exactly. There was a family. I spent 8 close years with those people, and not only was it the family, it was like my whole performing career, like a 10-year career that I was basically like shutting that book down. And so I was like, literally the last night, I'm at my computer emailing the casting director, sobbing, and I'm like, I cannot come back. And so I literally, like, from that moment on, I was like, all right, like this is done, and real estate, like this is the one. We're going full-fledged ahead, yeah.
And so you had 5 houses under contract. That was all during like that COVID window, even, or
well, that was just the month of June.
That was just the month when they give him a call. He was saying,
"Oh my god,
yeah." And so I was just like, I'd be taking 1 step back. I'd be taking 1 step forward and 10 steps back if I were to go back. And everyone was so lovely, and even the casting director replied to my email and was like, I completely understand, and I am so proud of you, and everyone was so nice about it. But it just got to the point where it didn't make sense for me to go back.
That's awesome. And that was what, 2 years ago now, almost?
That was less than a year. That was June of 2021. 2021.
Oh wow. Oh, okay.
Oh my god. So you're
about
like
a year ago,
just getting deep into it now.
That was my first year. Yeah.
Wow.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's crazy though. It is crazy to think, because I feel like there's been a common trend, right? Like, and we all know people that maybe have been on unemployment or something during that time, or just were comfortable during that time and wanted to stay comfortable and realize, oh, nobody else can do anything during this time. So, like, I'm not really, it's like a weekend, you don't feel bad not working on the weekend because nobody else is working. But then I swear to, like, we've had so many guests on this podcast
that literally changed their entire life and their entire family's line and everything like that.
COVID, and it's like billionaires are made in the times of recession and stuff like that. I mean, that applies to something totally different. But it's
literally the adaptability. That's what it is. It's like I feel like if you are able to adapt to situations, especially the worst of situations, you will always come out ahead. Because when everybody else is falling down, you're climbing, and that right there is just going to be exponential. When everything starts unfolding and finally coming back to terms where it's supposed to be at, it's just going to be, you're going to be way above everything. That's literally how it applies.
Yeah. And I mean, I was someone that was comfortable when it first started because we didn't know what was going to happen with the show. You know, like I thought at any point, like, oh, they'll call me back next week and we'll start rehearsals again.
What about all the properties and stuff? And then the income kind of shuts down a little bit. Where were you?
Yeah, because you're on Airbnbs and you also had a lot of money that you probably had to pay out for all those.
How did that look during the COVID time?
So COVID happened and, oh gosh, shit hit the fan. I mean, Airbnb, you know, in March and April, everyone canceled. Airbnb updated their extenuating circumstances clause, which I do understand. But like they refunded, despite what your cancellation policy was, they refunded the guests 100%. And so I had all of this, you know, confirmed revenue coming in for the month of March and April, and it was gone.
And on top of that, you just got canned from your...
Correct, and I don't have any income because I just got canned from my job. So what ended up happening was the Disney College program has housing for those Disney College students.
Which they
ended up...
ridiculous amount of money.
It was a crazy, obscene amount of money.
Wait, what is this Disney college program?
I don't know too much about it.
It's a slave program. They work 80 hours a week.
It is.
They don't usually they don't get overtime. They usually offer overtime to the full-time people before the Disney
I'm telling you right now, I worked with them hand in hand. They work about 70 hours a week.
But what's the benefit for them?
They get to be a Disney cast member and live on Disney property, essentially.
The main factor for them is that they can put on their resume that they pretty much went and worked at Disney. And because in the state of Florida, everybody worked at fucking Disney. It's not anything special. But in other states, when you say, "Hey, I work for Disney," it's really, really heavy on your resume.
Company.
It's their customer service factor. It's a really heavy thing, especially if you're like in the hospitality industry or anything like that. To say, "Hey, I work for Disney. I did like a Disney college intern program." It's like huge. But the thing is that they charge them an obscene amount of money. So basically, like in a 3-bedroom apartment, there's 6 people. They share a room. 2 people share a room.
So you're paying a premium.
And everybody pays. I know the prices just recently increased. I think it's like I think it's in a ballpark of like $125 to like $225 a week, depending on which one you get or which location you're at. And on top of that, they take it off your paycheck before you even see it. And on top of that, they're not paid the Disney minimum wage. They're paid less than the Disney minimum wage. So they're
making close to the minimum wage.
Yeah, but they're like $1 or $2 cheaper per hour.
They don't have to pay them minimum wage.
No.
Yeah.
All I know is they work them like dogs. That's all I know. I saw their schedules. They were like working.
It sounds
dogs.
like you guys are both right. There's a mutual benefit, you know, it seems like. But so there was an influx.
So they ended up, I don't know why, because of COVID, they were like, you guys have to get out of our housing. Like I think they gave them like 3 or 4 days. It was nuts.
Because everything shuts down.
Yeah, because Disney closed.
Because Disney closed. And I think they saw it as like a liability. I have no idea. But they were like, y'all got to get out. And like, I heard stories from the kids. So what ended up happening was I reached out to, there's a Facebook group for like Disney roommate, like housing accommodations for people looking for roommates or looking for housing.
Because your properties were in Davenport area?
Yeah. And I used to work at Disney. So I joined the group. And I just put, hey, I have a 4-bedroom condo. I will rent out, you know, the rooms for this much. And it ended up being less than what Disney was charging these poor kids.
Did you know that, or was it like a happy coincidence?
Well, I didn't know that at the time. I don't even know if I put pricing. I think I was just like, I need to get someone in here covering this mortgage.
And your first number stuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, well, they came in and, you know, I started talking to them and they were telling me, you know, this is what we pay at Disney. And I was like, well, I'm not going to charge you what you guys pay at Disney. And so they ended up spending less money, having their own room, having their own bathroom, not sharing with 5 other people in an updated, you know, condo versus the, I don't know. So, but they told me that it was a much better deal, you know, living at my condo. So I ended up being able to cash flow the condo for like 6 to 9 months.
Which was your second property?
Which was my last property that I bought, like my 4th property.
Okay.
So, and then I found tenants, a really nice couple from Chicago to rent out my my townhouse. And then what did I do with my single family house? That one, I think I just let sit there, and I was just paying the mortgage until the ban was finally lifted, and then that was the first one that I like started renting out again. But I was able to cash flow the majority of everything and stay, above water. Yeah.
Adapt or die, man.
Exactly.
Started transitioning from Airbnb to, who needs to rent this shit out? You know what I mean? Or
right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so then when things started coming back and Airbnb was starting to get allowed, I the lease ended for the college kids. And so I just ended up, I spent like a week, getting it back to Airbnb standards, and then started renting it out again.
To college kids is partly,
wasn't
because that's the other side of Airbnb
standards. How did you even get that in there?
I know. Well, yeah, and
monsters.
There were some horror stories.
Because that's like
not horror stories.
That's like the prototypical person. Like when you think about buying properties, renting it, Airbnb. The college kid is typically that's the prototypical person where you're like, stay the fuck away from this thing.
Yeah. The majority of everyone was great. There were a few things, and then, kids started, well, this person's doing this, and this person's leaving the kitchen a mess.
He ate my Oreos.
Yeah. So then I was dealing with that, which I never had to deal with. And so I was just like, let's end this and turn it back.
The management side kind of went up a little bit, right?
Yes, a little bit more. Yeah.
And you're like, this is why Disney charges these motherfuckers so much.
They were,
take them back.
But they were very nice kids, and I feel like I was able to not benefit, but I was able to survive, with the situation, and then they ended up, being able to survive because they had a place to stay finally.
Yeah. Everybody won.
But like some of these kids, I was told like they were from Australia.
Yeah, a lot of them are.
And they were like, and they were like, you expect me to buy a plane ticket home, like find a flight home in 3 days to Australia? Like, so
during COVID,
there's a lot of different international ones. They probably had people from a different Japan. They probably had people from China. I mean,
it was a lot of international. Yeah, and it was crazy. They gave them no notice, didn't they?
Yeah, that was the craziest thing.
I heard a lot of people talking about basically it was like, okay, you guys got to leave by the end of the week, basically. Yeah.
And they gave them no time to pack up their things. So
it was intense.
Yeah. So you were their savior, they were your savior a little bit.
Yeah, it was mutually beneficial, I guess. So
that's freaking awesome, man.
Learning to pivot and figure out how to stay afloat. Yeah.
So now, with as far as your real estate career, you're doing really good with that, right? Did you get Q1 seller?
Yeah, I got your Q1 award for production. I did $2.4 million in Q1 and blah 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 blah, and it's been going really well. Yeah,
awesome. How easy was that transition? Because there's a lot of people that like Brian was a good example where it's like, hey, I could do this real estate thing, but I don't know if I could go and show these houses as well as some of these other people could and stuff. How was that transition?
Again, learning to adapt. It's like when you start, I mean, you've never done it before. You just learn to swim.
Yeah. and when you have the motivation of bills on your shoulders,
correct,
you learn things faster than you that you were ready for.
So I mean, I kind of just dived in. When you first get into real estate, it's always your first 6 months are the hardest. It's the hardest time because you're trying to drum up business, but even if you do go under contract, it takes a month, and then things fall apart. So I didn't have my first closing for the first 3 months, I think, and so, but you're busting and you're working your tail off, trying every single day, just trying to find it. Yeah. And then it just, after the first 6 to 12 months, it really, I don't know, people
started falling through. Started coming together.
Yeah. And I think social media has played a huge part. This is how I found y'all.
Right.
If you, for first year real estate agents, I think having a social media presence is a huge thing. You have to have it. And
that's your brand.
That's your brand. Yeah. And the people that are following you, top of mind, that's the biggest thing that we talk about is you want everyone in your circle to think of you every time they think of real estate. And so you are constantly having to not bash people over the head, but make people realize that, Nick's a realtor. Somebody. Yeah. Oh, and even if it's not them, they have an entire circle and an entire sphere. That just happened a few days ago. I had someone reach out on Instagram and they were like, hey, I have a friend that's wanting to buy a house. we've gotten her pre-approved, and she's sent me properties that we're going to schedule showings on this next week. So it's like social media has been huge, and if you just literally are consistent, and I'm not even as consistent as I want to be in certain aspects of social media, but just, stories are a huge thing for me, and just every single day that I'm showing houses, like just doing a video sweep of showing new construction. It's here's the kitchen.
And I think too, because just speaking off, like the realtor that sold me this house, she has a lock on my company, right? Like, so she started with one person, and she literally has happy hours and events for this is the Zymogen, that's the name of our company. This is the Zymogen happy hour, and it's crazy to see, there's 30 of us, and it's it all started with that one person, you know. But how do you do the follow-ups, the past clients that you've had? Do you follow up? Do you keep talking with them here and there, or is there that fine line? Because there is parts where I'm she's on me a little, she's texting me about a turkey or something, and it's Thanksgiving, which I understand what you're doing. This is great. Right. It works to a certain point.
It does. And I'm still learning, my follow up, routines and rhythms and what is too much and what's not enough. And so I feel like that is something that I can work on and isn't a strength of mine. There are people on my team that are follow-up masters,
right?
And have everything on an Excel spreadsheet and schedules and everything. And I think that is, we should be doing that. I lack in that a little bit,
and you haven't had to. It seems
but it's also perspective too, because for what annoys you, the next person might be like, "Oh my God, she thought about me."
Yeah, right? Exactly. Perspective for sure. So.
Since we have, every time we have a realtor. Well, first, since we were talking about the Airbnb, what do you think for those people? Jacob might be one of them. There's a lot of people. We've kind of talked about it here and there. What is the best platform to you in your experience for doing the Airbnbs?
For me personally, it's been Airbnb. I've gotten about...
They did the Visine. That's actually an eye drop, but we call it everything Visine. That's how good they fucking did.
Yeah. Just like Uber. Right.
Yeah.
It's like Uber. Order Uber. It's your Lyft is here. It's I thought we were ordering an Uber.
Yeah.
Yeah,
VRBO, Airbnb. What's another one?
The three that I did was Airbnb, VRBO, and TripAdvisor.
Okay,
TripAdvisor. Yeah.
The most business came from Airbnb. I would say 80 to 85% was Airbnb. 10% was VRBO and about 5% was TripAdvisor.
Cool. That's good information, though. So, because it's if anybody's trying to get into it, if you're going to pick one, there you go.
For sure. And the Airbnb that I have now, I have sold, I've sold my Airbnb, my first one, and then the other one I've turned into a long-term rental. The one that I do have now is only on Airbnb because it's an Airbnb Plus property. So
what does that mean?
It basically is just an elevated Airbnb experience. So there's higher requirements. You have to have the shampoo and the conditioner and the coffee and all of that. So instead of it just being an optional thing, they also look for just aesthetically, a nice looking, good Airbnb house.
Visually appealing.
So so that one is strictly on Airbnb and no other platforms. And last month it was vacant 3 days for the entire month. I had 90% occupancy.
That's
so
fucking great.
It literally does its job just being on the platform. And I was telling you guys, I've never spent a dime in advertising. I don't push out ads. It's nothing. It's just putting it on the platform itself drives the business. For me personally, that's been my experience. So.
And now in your experience, you've rented, sold Airbnb. Let's just say somebody like me, where let's just say maybe 4 or 5 years, I do plan on getting another home. What do you think is the best route? And obviously it's right now and it's only your experience, but what do you think in your experience was the best route as far as long-term renter versus Airbnb?
Airbnb is more
higher ceiling.
Lucrative for sure. Yeah, the money that you can make on Airbnb can't touch long-term renting. There are additional costs associated with Airbnb. My long-term renters pay for their electricity, they pay for their cable, they pay for their internet, they pay for the So with Airbnb, you have those expenses, and then there's the cleaning fees and all of that, which the guests do pay for. But again, there's just a lot more money, I guess, going out, but there's a lot more money coming in as well.
So Airbnb has been more lucrative for you.
For sure, 100%.
So that might be, I mean, for those of you that are thinking about, doing something with your current home or something just like you were thinking about, Airbnb seems like the best route then, huh?
Yeah.
Or at least try it. Like, at least try that first. And then if you give up or whatever, if you have a bad experience, then look for a long-term rental.
And also, like, in general, I feel like a lot of people, whenever I speak to people about, like, oh, you should get rental properties, whatever, they always like, I don't want to deal with tenants, them trashing my house, like that. But Airbnbs, you don't normally have to deal with
that is something people say.
So, I mean, the thing about, I know, and I hear that a lot, and they're like, I don't want people destroying my property.
Yeah.
I always tell people, in the 5 or 6 years that I've been doing this now, the worst trashed, property that's ever happened, or the worst incident, there was a couple that called me and they said, hey, we were rolling our bag across the floor, and I ended up putting my foot through the wall, like going around the corner.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, that sounds a little weird. And then I was like, okay, no worries, I'll come down. And
was that a college kid? Was that one of the college kids?
Sounded like a college kid. Yeah. So
it wasn't.
No, but this was an Airbnb guy. Yeah. And then he goes, you
didn't even do that for the college kids.
And one more thing, my girlfriend and I, we ended up, just sitting on the couch, and the couch broke in half.
Wait.
And I was like,
how much does your wife want?
Do I need to call 911?
I was like, yeah, what's going on? He goes, and he was really nice. He was willing to the security deposit or whatever. He was like, that's totally yours. I know that I screwed up a lot of things. And so he didn't fight me on that. And it ended up, I wanted to replace that couch anyhow and get a sleeper sofa. So it honestly ended up working out in my favor, because I had his security deposit to help pay for a sleeper sofa. And then the hole in the wall, definitely, he lied about that. But I mean, I was able to get like a patch from Home Depot for $5 and just like paint it over, and you'd never even saw it. So, but that's the worst like horror story.
Really?
Yeah. That's not simple.
That's what I'm saying. When you have renters, there's so much more daily wear and tear. The doors, you got to repaint everything. Daily. The door trim. Lord forbid they have some animals that come in, and there's so many different things. And it's like long term, it's way more.
I feel it's more complicated too, because even with the eviction, I mean, with the long term renters, man, in Florida, it's a bitch and a half to get them evicted sometimes. When it comes to Airbnb,
and Florida's pretty conservative with the renters. Like Pennsylvania is like, I heard Pennsylvania is like one of the hardest to get people out, because it's like more of like it's a tenant state versus like
And I guess at the end of the day, when you're comparing apples to apples, there's like a renter also doesn't care like an owner, right? Yeah. Like nobody's gonna treat the property like as if you owned it,
right?
And Airbnb is almost. I mean, I've stayed in Airbnbs and stuff, and I try to treat it like somebody's coming tomorrow.
Not just that, but it's like, damn, I'm gonna have to pay for this. Especially if you're like
security deposit,
But it's like if you're like a landlord, it's more so like. It's like, oh, like I already paid my deposit. I moved in here. I gave him fucking $1,500.
Yeah, and I can fix that tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
I can fix that next month.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I'm gonna be here for the next 12 months or so. Yeah, that's a good way to break it down, because a lot of people. I mean, that's the hesitation, right? Like one of my Justin, they have a property, around the corner or whatever, and they just finished fixing it up, and that's one of their decisions that they're trying to kind of make. It's like, what do you want? But their problem is they haven't tried one yet, right? And so you got to just try it. Yeah. But that's something that they've been thinking about. It's like, do we just try to find a renter so he can get consistent income kind of thing? But then everybody knows that Airbnb could be the most lucrative, but it's like, just try it. You never know. Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's easier to go from Airbnb to long-term renting versus long-term renting and turning it into an Airbnb, Yeah. So you block your calendar and cash flow it until, the calendar stops, and then you get long-term renters.
Let me ask you something, Clyde. This is something I've always wondered with like Airbnbs, because I looked into doing Airbnbs, but I was planning on doing sublease to like somebody who owned. But anyways,
like rental arbitrage.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I was planning on doing. But my question is with your homeowner's insurance, how does that apply? Does that like you have to call your homeowner's insurance and tell them, hey, I'm doing this as an Airbnb and stuff like that? Or
you've got to get. There's a company that I use, and it's like a specific short-term vacation rental insurance company.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They're called Proper, and
because I can imagine if you're doing
higher, but
I can imagine if you're doing like Airbnb and somebody comes in and they burn your place down, you tell your insurance and they find out you're doing Airbnb, they're going to be like, fuck you.
Yeah, they're like, forget that.
Yeah. So that way, just for people, if you're doing Airbnb and you don't have that insurance, make sure you guys definitely switch up your homeowner's insurance for that.
So we back when we first started the podcast, I think it was like episode 12 or something. We had an episode called Market. We just pretty much screamed at each other for like a whole hour because this was back in like early 2021 where there was all types of perspectives on the market. The market was flying, but there were still all these things that were maybe indicating that the market was going to drop, foreclosures maybe because people were losing jobs. There's no way that this is going to happen. So after that, since then, we've had different types of realtors on. So we love to ask realtors that come on the show, and the latest realtor probably has the most information and stuff because it's the current, more and more of the current market. But what do you think about the current market? Do you think it's going to keep going up? Do you think, what is your input at this point? Like, what is your opinion on the market right now?
So I do think there's a shift that's happening right now in the market. With the interest rates being in the 5% and 6%. I mean, it's literally.
Is it getting up there already?
Yeah, it's like in the low to mid fives right now.
5.4.
It's getting crazy, and it's pricing people out. Like, I talked to a girl on my team. She had a pre-approved buyer that had been pre-approved at like 3% or something, and now the interest rates, she's at 2.5% higher, and the buying power, she can't afford anything now because you have to get approved for the payment, and if you have to borrow at a higher interest rate, you're going to get pre-approved for less money. So it's making buyers almost have to like drop out of the market in some situations.
In some cases, yeah.
And so, the demand kind of will slow down, I think, as this continues to happen. I do think you need about 6 or so months to kind of really see any real trends.
Yeah.
So I feel like by the beginning of next year, we might see, like
the rate
dips,
decline,
or either
the rate is starting to decline, probably, right? Well, actually, I don't even know. Like
the interest rate.
Interest rates?
No. The rate of like market value, like the rate of increasing of the market value. Do you think that's declining anytime soon, or is that going to kind of follow the buyers pulling out due to the interest rates and stuff like that? Because the inventory is still the inventory,
right?
The demand is still the demand,
right?
Well, the demand, when the demand starts dropping,
right.
It's going to start.
You're not going to have people bidding $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, increasing the values anymore. So they're in essence,
So the rate. So do you think it's going to drop at all?
I mean, I think you'll be able to not pay the asking price. You'll be able to get things for under ask soon, instead of having to outbid 20 people and put $30,000-$40,000 over.
So it seems like you think that the market is probably just more going to stabilize.
Yeah, I think it'll correct.
It is. Yeah.
And then, but the other thing is there's still a supply, there's still a demand to live down here. And so I feel like, if other markets start depreciating, the Central Florida market will see it later, than other markets.
Yeah.
Because, we have so many people from New York and California that are like, we can
down here.
There's a shack on the side of the street that I can buy for $1 million in California, and I can move down to Florida, or in California, and in Florida, I can get something. And even with these accelerated values, they still see it as a deal. So
and like people always talk about New York and California and stuff like that. You kind of have somewhere with all of like Wisconsin. That's where you're from, or whatever. What is the market like in Wisconsin? Is it because I know like Minneapolis and shit, like. My fiance's uncle sold his home to people from Minneapolis, right? And they paid way over appraisal.
Yeah.
And it was because they were paying about the same $800,000 for the same home. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, Minneapolis? Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's cold over there. It's not New York or LA. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, my dad will look in the MLS and he'll call me and he's like, Nick, there's 90 properties available in all of, Kenosha County. And I'm like, holy cow. And I look and we've got a lot more than that. So they had even less inventory than we did down here.
Really?
Now, granted, the size of the counties, I don't know.
Matters. It matters.
So, but
we have probably like more, I don't know. Wisconsin's different.
But yeah, the amount of like available inventory was less in Wisconsin than it was down here.
Really?
I can say that.
And how about market price? What is the market price out there?
So,
give or take.
Oh, I don't like price per square foot. I would not be able. I'm not totally sure.
It must not be that drastic then, right?
I don't know. I don't think it's like drastically more or drastically less. I feel like we're probably around,
which is also crazy if you ask me, right? Because it's like if you could be an hour away from this beach, 2 hours away from Tampa, 4 hours from Miami if you want to be, and then you got all this shit in Orlando, and you're talking about same, like not drastically more or drastically less in Wisconsin. Nothing against Wisconsin. It's probably a great place to live.
It's really cold though. It's really cold.
You know, it's like, come on, man. Especially with all this remote work and stuff going on, it's like, you know, you're probably gonna get a lot of IT people moving to Florida that work in Wisconsin.
It's already been happening. IT people have been calling.
Yeah,
it's already been happening.
So that's interesting, man.
Yeah.
We always had to ask because I love getting into like because the market's so crazy and it's been crazy and it's been a roller coaster.
And everyone has a different like idea of what's going to happen. You know, no one has the crystal ball. That's just what I think.
We'd all be millionaires.
I mean, right. And some people think, you know, we're going to see another recession. Some people think this isn't going to stop for another 3 years. Like it varies by who you talk to.
Man, that was good. That was great. Yeah. Anything else? You guys got anything you want to get off your chest, Nick?
No, I'm good.
No, I mean,
or put on your chest.
I really appreciate y'all reaching out and having me come on.
Yes, thank you for coming.
This was my first podcast. This was very cool. Very cool. So
hopefully it was a good experience.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on.
It was great. And my first Instagram live.
So. Yeah, coming out in 2 weeks. If you're listening to this right now, I'm sorry. That's just we recorded this 2 weeks ago. So.
Cool.
But
at the end of every episode, we do a weekly failure and a weekly success. So we kind of reflect on the last week and we kind of decide like what was a success for us for the week or what was a failure. You could do a week or you could do like a month or you could do like an annual, however you want to do it. But we kind of just like step back and kind of reflect on things.
It's like a room for growth. It's like like what was something that we could that was great and then what was something that we could kind of build off of or whatever. We'll go first so you can get an idea. You want to go?
What we doing earlier? So you go first.
Okay. I'll start.
I forgot what I did in my last one. I had two now, but I forgot which ones I used in my last one.
Weekly success for me. At this point, I'm getting really into my MBA. I just started an MBA program and stuff. It's really cool. And I know I always talk about that failure of going for the CPA and not getting it. I did feel like when I was doing it, I wasn't doing something I should be doing. Not that, like, I knew I should be trying it and stuff, but I didn't. It's almost like I wasn't built for it, right? Or at the time of my life, the way I thought, the person I was not ready to go for the CPA. But damn it, I just did my orientation. I did all my review courses and stuff, and I'm getting into my first couple classes, and I just feel like this is going to be so achievable. I feel like I'm so built for it. I feel like the environment and everything was for me, and it was built for me. And it just feels really good because I had a pivot where I was like, shit, I tried it. I didn't get it. Now I'm doing this. And it feels really good to come out of it like I made a good decision. I really made a good decision. My weekly failure, I would say, speaking of houses and investments and real estate, I feel like, I'm just a kid, but like, I envy those that have time to be around the house all the time and just work on the home and stuff like that. And I'm just making an excuse right now. My failure is I need to work on my house a little more. I need to put a little more emphasis on the weekly things. And,
I've told you, let me know. I'll come through.
And the big projects. It's more so the projects that I'm just prolonging and stuff, But it's time management. I got to work on it and get through it.
All right, I'm gonna start with my failure. My failure is, man, I haven't been cooking much, so I've been eating out a lot and
money.
Not money, more of a just weight, bro.
That pho for pho. He been eating that pho for pho.
I'm not eating good food. I'm not like I'm eating.
It's like waistline.
Food. Yeah, so it's making me groggy. It's not good for my it's not good for my weight. So I definitely got to eat better. My success, I don't want it to be the same as the last one. My success would be that I'm more organized. I'm more goal oriented. So I am organized. I'm getting. I'm basically breaking down. I set goals for myself in my flip that I'm accomplishing. So I did this. I got this done. I'm hitting my time frames the way I like it. So, I'm happy about that. I'm actually looking forward to how much more I can get done at exactly the times I expected to get them done. So, I'm on the right path. As long as it keeps going down the same time I'm on, we'll get this done before August. I'll be happy. But yeah, so that's my success.
Hell yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm on the draw right now. I had 2 of them, but I completely forgot which one I used.
Find
on the last one.
Find something.
But I'm kind of steal off of what Jacob said a little bit. But I'm actually going to flip it though, because I actually have a success. Like I said, this last week I kind of took off. I was with my girl because she was been in her program, so we've been doing that. But we've been eating at home, so that's been a good thing. We've been eating clean. She's actually started working out with one of her friends.
Cool.
So like we're eating clean. I had chicken and salad before I came here.
She's getting used to the no school life now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's enjoying it. So I'm actually been eating clean this last week, so that's actually a positive for me. But a failure for me, I had a really great one, but I completely forgot what it was. So that's completely out of the window. But
that was such a good failure. I'll remember it. My dad will tell me one day.
My life. No, but seriously though, I really forgot what it was. But I guess my failure I can stem off of was just that last week I didn't work, which was, I said, a success last week, but I didn't really work, so I didn't really have much income coming in. So that's one of the downsides when you work for yourself. You don't really have PTO unless you pay yourself, essentially. So I mean, I have the money to pay myself, but it just kind of sucks that you take an L on that. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Failure for me, I feel like we went to we had a trip to the Maldives about a month or so back.
Yes, that looked awesome.
And it was great. Yes. It was great.
But you went with him?
I came back.
I totally would have
followed along on the Instagram.
I totally would have.
But I came back, and again, when you work for yourself, it's like there's like a rhythm that is disrupted when you take. I mean, we had to go for like 10 days because it took almost 2 days to get there, 2 days to go back. And so I took an extended amount of time off, and so trying to. I feel like my failure was just finding the rhythm quick enough to get back into the game, and I saw like a lag in sales for the month and blah 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 blah. But I guess my success would be I had a closing on Friday. I got a first time home buyer into his first house.
Nice,
which made me feel so good. A guy I went to college with, and then
cool,
then on Thursday I had a closing for sellers, and they ended up being able to use those funds, and they're now in Ocala, and they are in their 30s, and they have no mortgage.
Yes.
Love that.
Where did you go to school? Where did you go to college?
The University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music.
You said that.
Yep.
Small world.
Yeah.
And now you're getting your buddy from school a house in Florida.
And he's still down here performing, and he's an actor, and he works on the Disney cruise ships, and
that's really
he
cool.
just bought a house.
Fuck yeah.
I know.
Good for hey, that's full circle.
It's good to see them recovering back from the COVID stuff.
Yeah,
so that's
good. Exactly. So that would be my
hell yeah, man.
Success and my failures.
Thanks for that, bro. That was awesome.
Of course.
That's it, man. Pocket watch out, man.
Pocket watch out.
Watch out.